Welcome, everybody, to Bet What Happens Live for the Super Bowl. I'm Nick Giffen. Alongside me, my co-host for the Super Bowl Bet What Happens Live, Gilles Gallant. Right now, we're just coming out of the 2-minute warning between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles lead by 7, but the Chiefs have the ball. Gilles, what do you make of the game so far?
Jalen Hurts has looked incredible, Nick. 13 to 16 throwing the ball, 145 yards. His pregame over-under passing yards total was around 245. He looks like he's going to probably easily sail over that at this rate. And also,
Kansas City Chiefs,
10 rushes
Eagles
for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
by 7,
if you had Jalen Hurts
Chiefs
for
have the
Super Bowl
ball.
MVP prior to
Gilles,
this keeps going.
What do you make of the
pace,
game
it's
so far?
Undeniable that he's going to win MVP at this rate.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. He's looking really good. I mean, like you said, 145 passing yards, 61 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Honestly, he could win MVP even if somehow the Eagles lose, if he probably grabs another passing touchdown or rushing touchdown in some way, shape, or form, because so far he's very clearly been the MVP of the game outside of that fumble, which was recovered and returned for a touchdown by the Kansas City defense. So, yeah, there was one little knock there, but he's looked really good so far. So, from a betting perspective, is there anything you've noticed in this game so far? I know one thing I noticed, obviously, Miles Sanders came out and went to the locker room. He came back in, but he has not been effective. 2 rushes, -2 yards. We've seen a whole lot of Kenneth Gainwell, and I don't know how much of that is Sanders being hurt, how much of that was Gainwell is going to be used more anyway, but certainly that's what I've noticed on the Eagles side of the ball. What about you, Gilles?
It was definitely an Eagles script in the first half. 21 rushing attempts, really keeping Mahomes on the sideline for a good portion of this game. I think that's exactly what the Eagles wanted, especially if you're an Eagles bettor and you were betting this. This is exactly how you wanted kind of this to play out, even though the fumble went back for 7 points. Again, that's kind of luck. You'd be laughing if you were sitting there as an Eagles bettor right now, being 21-7. But yeah, from a receiving standpoint as well, the Eagles don't seem to be really taking over the middle as much. They've been really taking on the outsides. A.J. Brown had that long touchdown. Devontae Smith already has 5 catches in the first half. You know, his pregame over-under was around 62 to 63.5 for receiving yards. He's already got 50. So one more catch from him is likely going to go over that as well. So right now, if you bet, it's a very chalky first half. I would say that as well. Like Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown.
By the way, Mahomes is injured, by the way. He had that rush there, and he came up limping. So he just got tackled on the ankles. And of course, he had that high ankle sprain. So this is a big pivotal moment here. As far as live betting, that changes everything. He is limping off the field. He is not looking good. And that was one of the things I noticed coming in, or I shouldn't say coming in, but very early. Mahomes had a scramble or an early run, and you can see that ankle tweak again on his right foot. It was that right ankle, his plant ankle.
Did we just see the Eagles call the first time out?
And I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe we did. But anyway, so Mahomes, let's just go to Mahomes here.
For sure. Yeah.
Mahomes' right ankle twisted there, which was the same ankle that he injured. And yes, the Eagles did call the first time out. But that's important because I noticed early in the game when he was running, he didn't look at full speed. He was running, but it just didn't look full speed. And now you absolutely saw the right ankle just do this thing again. So this is not looking good for the Chiefs right now. I think we mentally have to adjust to the situation here where Mahomes is absolutely not going to be playing 100%. I don't think he already was, but I think he's very much not going to be playing 100% at this point. Well below 100%. And we have to consider that when we're kind of trying to handicap this game. I think it is going to make it tough to live bet this game because I think Mahomes props will be off the board. Yep. I think Chiefs receiving props could potentially be off the board. So we're in a situation where we may have to focus on the Eagles. And even on the Eagles side, we had Sanders, who really only has 2 carries so far. So we kind of have to mentally adjust with that as well. Miles Sanders reduced usage. So sorry to interrupt there, but that was an absolutely big moment in the game, that Mahomes retwisting of the ankle. So now with that new information, what do we do, Gilles? What do we do?
Well, that's a rightful interruption. I think that's more than fair. I think what we talked about during the touchdown show, we may have to pivot to that angle of, remember, we were looking, even though the Eagles aren't up by 10 yet, one of the scenarios we posed was that the Eagles could potentially be up by 10 at halftime. And if that was the case, we wanted to pivot hard to more maybe some Devontae Smith touchdown props. And then, of course, one's near and dear to our heart. We want to maybe look at Kenneth Gainwell as well, just especially because of how much Miles Sanders isn't really factoring in so far in the first half.
Yeah, so the scenario that we talked about is Eagles being up, that we talked about on the touchdown show, I should say, is Eagles being up by 10 at halftime. This is kind of close enough, right? Like they're up by 7. They have
if Mahomes
the ball.
Was out or limited the rest of the game, wouldn't that almost be considered almost feeling like a 10-point lead?
Exactly. It feels like a little bit extra of a lead there. So we're in that scenario where it does feel like that. So there's 82 seconds left in the half, if I did my math right there. Yeah, 82 seconds left in the half. The Eagles have 2 timeouts remaining. I'm just trying to mentally update things here. And I'm updating the live betting market as well. It looks like books have adjusted for this Mahomes injury. The Eagles are very heavily favored now in the live betting market at bet365.
Oh, wow.
So if I look at anytime touchdown scores, they're off the board, but I know you and I are absolutely going to want to look at that as a betting proposition, because that's part of what we pre-analyzed coming into this game for the touchdown show. So right now there are no markets unlocked for live touchdown odds, but I'm going to be very curious to see, what happens with live touchdown bets. But unfortunately right now, nothing available because of that Mahomes injury. So this is certainly making it pretty tough, and all bets are off the board right now. So we're just going to kind of have to see what happens here on this drive with the Eagles. But if you were to look at an anytime touchdown bet, maybe right off the bat, where would be the place that you start?
Well, Devontae Smith, I think, is the natural look. Now, he was plus 175 to score a touchdown in for pregame odds. Has been getting a ton of work so far. I do feel like the Eagles will probably lean on the run game as well, but I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas in this game. I think with Mahomes, even a limited Mahomes potentially on the other side, they're not going to think it to themselves like, oh, it's 31-7, and now we're just going to, run Gardner Minshew out there. Like, I don't see any Minshew sightings coming in this game unless they're up by like 40 points at that point. So, that's kind of why I'm thinking the passing game, I think, is still going to be in effect in the second half. And when the touchdown odds come back up for Devontae, I'm kind of hoping that maybe we can get closer to like plus 275, plus 300. I'm not sure where the projection odds are laying right now based on the score and amount of time. So we may have to recalculate once we get to halftime.
And speaking of Devontae Smith, he did just have a 35-yard reception, but it is under review. So certainly the Eagles putting the pedal to the metal at the end of this quarter. They would love to get a few extra points on the board here. And we'll just have to wait and see what the ruling is for this Devontae Smith catch. To me, it looks like a catch, but I don't have the volume on because we're obviously recording a live show. But he got 2 feet in. And the question is, did he get 2 feet in after he had full control? And I think that's what we're going to have to find out here. But looks like the play is going to stand here. So the Eagles in scoring position once again. So at this point in time, based off of that, the live betting markets look like they're going to adjust even further. And the Eagles are set up at the 13-yard line of the Kansas City Chiefs. So definitely a situation here where Eagles looking to go up by at least 2 scores, and we would be exactly in that scenario. Now, the question is, does it almost feel like more than 2 scores with the fact that Mahomes has that little bit of a knock, so to speak? Does it almost feel like a 3-possession game at this point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we can rule that out, especially, again, he looked great against the Jaguars enough where he was able to kind of push the momentum. But again, the game was almost tied, and they were leading in that game script. Coming back in, that would be Tiger Woods winning the U.S. Open with a broken leg type stuff, right? Like that would be unreal for him to be able to do that, especially after taking that kind of hit and the ankle injuries that he's been dealing with. The other angle I was going to think about with the Chiefs, and I think we could probably consider this both with Mahomes limited, but also let's say hypothetically Chad Henne sees a couple series. Like, let's just say Jerick McKinnon still probably isn't a bad bet from an anytime touchdown perspective, but I think we need to see what the odds are outputting, because in a trailing script, we're going to be able to probably see, like, I don't imagine Pacheco is going to get much work in the second half if they're not running and they're passing most of the game. So Jerick McKinnon is going to be out there way more. So that would be a guy that I think on the Chiefs side, regardless of quarterback situation, that maybe we want to see if it shows any value going forward.
Yeah, and so we're actually still awaiting a ruling on this. I was mistaken there, but still just waiting. This is a very long review process that we've got going on here. So just going to kind of have to wait and see what happens here.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's just a waiting game as far as I'm concerned here with this. But one thing I will note is the Philadelphia Eagles, they started with the ball in the first half. So the Kansas City Chiefs will start with the ball in the second half. So that play did end up getting overturned. Yep. Jalen Hurts, the pass is incomplete to Devontae Smith. So that's called back. And so they're going to come all the way back. That was supposed to be a 35-yard gain, but no longer a 35-yard gain there. So we have to put Devontae Smith back to 5 receptions for 50 yards, and the Eagles back to 154, not the Eagles, Jalen Hurts back to 154 passing yards. So just some adjustments we have to make there in terms of yardage totals. And it looks like, the betting markets have adjusted a little bit as well. So just down slightly from when we were coming into this show, the live show here, that the Eagles were around 80% to win. Now it's a little bit under that, under 80% to win. So just going to have to wait and see there. But right, the Chiefs do start with the ball, so we want to make note of that, because any odds we show on the Chiefs, we're probably going to want to shade a little bit more towards their overs, but just a touch. And so if we're showing big value on an over, we want to shade even more towards the over. So that would be a bet we probably take. If we're showing value on an under, we may not take it as much unless it's pretty significant value. But opposite is true for the Eagles, right? Because they're not going to start with the ball in the second half. Then we want to shade toward the Eagles unders. And if we see value on an under, that means there's probably even more value on the Eagles unders there. So right now we are in the situation where the Eagles do have the ball 1st and 10 inside Chiefs territory. So, just kind of playing the waiting game a little bit here, waiting to see what's going to happen as we go into halftime. If you had any one prop you had to bet right now, or I shouldn't say had to bet, but we're super interested to look at, what would it be?
Well, the one guy I wanted to note, because this was one of those, like, I would hardly call the word contentious, but more along the lines of just where we disagree. But it was Kerner and I, we were talking about Justin Watson, how he was just a little nervous about taking the under on receiving yards as opposed to receptions itself. So Justin Watson has 1 reception so far in the game, but he has only 6 receiving yards. His over-unders at 12.5. It closed around 15.5. With the second half going and the Chiefs being in a game script here, I'm wondering do you think that the Chiefs could spray it out a little bit more and try to extend it to some maybe different options here? Or do you think the periphery options like a Justin Watson, maybe we're still seeing more value on an under bet on this?
Yeah. So right now, and this is pending any live plays, any time adjustments here. Right now, it looks like we are showing about 55% on Justin Watson's under. If you say that the live line is 12.5 and he has 6 receiving yards right now. So we're showing about 55% to the under. But again, we're kind of in a situation here where we just got to wait and see what happens, right? I mean, it's just too tough to tell what is going to happen. We have 23 seconds. Now. Yeah, 23 seconds left. Eagles are in the red zone. They have 1 timeout remaining. So it's actually based off all the numbers now. We're actually at 56% to Justin Watson's under. If you are able to bet that, knowing the Chiefs will start with the ball, though, it doesn't quite make it as much value.
It's
so
1 catch, man. That's what I always worry about with a guy like Watson, who has a really high ADOT, but just doesn't get a ton of volume. So with a guy like that, 1 catch for 15 yards, and you're sitting there just wanting to like slap yourself after you take like an under on something like that.
Yeah, certainly. So Eagles are still driving. There's 15 seconds left and they have the ball. One timeout remaining. It looks like it is 2nd and 8 at the Kansas City 17. So Eagles actually just took their final timeout with 4 seconds remaining. And it looks like, I'm going to guess they'll end up kicking a field goal. Gilles, you and I said on the touchdown show, if the Eagles are up by 10 at halftime, this would be a scenario. Very real chance they're up exactly 10 at halftime, which would be pretty funny. Also, if Jake Elliott makes a field goal here, I would hit my second quarter as the first made field goal bet at plus 175. So I'm sweating this one a little bit here as
I
well.
think you're on the over under for his total points in this game too, I believe, right? So
yeah, I'm on his under, but I guess I wouldn't mind it if he made this and then only had one more kicking point the rest of the game. But
and then they just punt the rest of the way.
Yeah, not looking great for me. So Jake Elliott does make the field goal. So
all right,
we are officially at halftime of the Super Bowl, and I just want to remind everybody that Bet What Happens Live is presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, and now my home state of Virginia. Bet $1 on any game and get $200. All right, Gilles. So let's reset things here. We are officially at halftime. I am going to update the live market, but the Philadelphia Eagles lead at halftime by a score of 24-14. And what that means is by the fact that they're 10 points ahead, 24-14 at halftime against Kansas City Chiefs, what we are showing right now is the live betting market has the Eagles as a 79% favorite to win the game. The Kansas City Chiefs, 21% favorite, or underdog, I should say, to win the game. One other thing I want to make note of is the pace splits. We're in a situation where the Eagles lead, and when the Eagles lead, they do take their foot off the gas pedal. I do think they probably want another score to feel comfortable. So I'm not ready to take the under yet, especially knowing Kansas City is starting with the ball. But Nick Sirianni is very good about adjusting tempo. If the Eagles have a big lead, they will absolutely bleed the clock. They're a great running team. They will take all the time in the world on these rushing, in between plays because they run a lot. So we're in a situation where I do think there could potentially be value on an under, but what I would want to do if we were to take a live under would be to wait and see what Kansas City does on this drive. If they don't score, I think the under is just a smash spot here. So looking at the live total at Bet365, we've got 62.5. And right now there are 38 points total. So that would mean we'd need another 25 points to hit the over, or 24 or less to stay under. So I think we got to wait out this Kansas City Chiefs first drive. So I don't think we're going to go there. So Gilles, you know what that means. It's time for some player props. Where are we going?
Yeah. Well, I actually wanted to pivot away from the touchdowns because I know right now we're a little bit worried about the state of Mahomes, and you can actually go look right now. Patrick Mahomes, a lot of his props are off the board, or at least just blacked out right now until they're going to come back probably later in this half. But what I wanted to do was we had this exact scenario. We talked about it on the touchdown show. What do we do when the Eagles lead by 10 or more? And the two guys that I wanted to look at, regardless of Mahomes' status, is Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Now, Sky Moore, I know that he was been flagged as being more of, emergency receiver, maybe even third. But again, his receiving yards right now, he just needs one receiving yard at minus 105. And if you even wanted to take it a little safer approach, his one catch over under is one catch for minus 115. So in case it's a negative catch behind the line of scrimmage where they try to do a gadget play. So kind of wondering if maybe there might be some potential on an over here for Sky Moore.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So half a yard is all he needs. And the funny thing is, right, so he has no receptions right now, no yards, just needs half a yard. We are showing 51% under, 49% over. So we are dead smack on with the betting market. Even the under, like even we lean slightly under, and the juice is minus 125 under versus minus 105 over. So in a juice free market, we would be at 51% under. The juice free market would be 51% under and 49% over. So we are literally dead on with the market, unfortunately, on Sky Moore.
That's incredible because it's almost like you're showing value on him having negative yards, which is like, almost kind of funny. So we'll then pivot to somebody who's getting more snaps, like a Kadarius Toney. Like Kadarius Toney, his receptions line is over under 1.5, and his receiving yards is at 13.5. So, or pardon me, it's up to 15.5 now. It just went up. So receiving yards maybe might not have as much value, but I'm wondering the 2 catches might show some value here in the spot.
Yeah, so still seeing 13.5 now as well on Kadarius Toney at bet365. I don't know if it's state by state thing, but I'm seeing 13.5. We would show a thin amount of over value on Kadarius Toney at 53.5% to the over. Plus the Chiefs are starting with the ball. So again, just not enough edge here at minus 115 juice to feel comfortable about Toney. So unfortunately, with Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, we're going to have to pivot away from those. I do want to look and see. So right now, Patrick Mahomes, if we look at passing yards, at 268. Now. Yeah, 268.5. So there must have been some news there. And Jalen Hurts, 281.5. Our live projections for both quarterbacks, let me make sure I just absolutely have their exact numbers here. So Mahomes has 89 yards passing, Hurts 183 yards passing. Our live line on Jalen Hurts is almost smack dab perfectly on with the live market. Our projection for Hurts is 253, not for Hurts, for Patrick Mahomes. Our live projection is 253. And that's considering right now he has 89 yards passing. Plus, he's kind of hurt, right? So I feel like that will probably hamper him as well. And there's the fact he could get injured and get out. They may have to bring in Chad Henne because of his injury. I think we have to take Patrick Mahomes under 268.5. I am taking that on Bet What Happens Live. Under 268.5 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes.
I'm going to be with you because I also wanted to bring up when they played against the Jaguars, when he got hurt mid-game, he only finished with 195 passing yards in that game. So just something to kind of note that it's not out of the ordinary for him to, maybe get dinged up and then maybe his passing yards to go down. So yeah, I love that bet. It's sitting at 268.5. So let's take the under on that and see if the Eagles defense will kind of step up here, especially when they know that the Chiefs will likely be in a more passing game script in the second half.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we're adjusting for the fact that the Chiefs are going to be in a more passing game script. That's part of what my model does. So I built a model to predict, the remaining number of plays for each team, the pass rush ratio for each team. And we are showing that Kansas City is going to pass between 4 and 5% more than their pregame projection in the second half here. But I mean, we're in a spot where Patrick Mahomes, a little bit of a knock, a little bit of an injury. So I think we just have to go with the under here and just roll with it. I mean, it's not a comfortable spot. It's never fun to take under on arguably the best quarterback in NFL history. But we just kind of have to do it. And we're showing about 15 yards of value, something like that. So first bet What Happens Live, under 268.5 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. And it's already down to 266.5. So it looks like we're moving markets, Gilles. Where do you want to go next?
Well, I wanted to think of another bet that correlates with this, which would actually almost be like a little bit of a double down. I'm not sure if it's going to show projected value on the yes, but I'm curious to see if anybody was considering Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception in the second half. Seeing plus 140 to throw one, minus 170 to keep it clean in the second half.
Yeah, we're showing 190 as the break-even line. So we'd be showing very thin value on a no for the interception. Minus 170, we're showing minus 190 as fair value. So there's a little bit of value on a no for the interception on Patrick Mahomes, but I don't love taking that because if that injury flare-up happens,
you're right.
If it affects his throwing, then we have to mentally factor that in as well. So I want to avoid his interception number there.
All right. So then if we're seeing a great passing script so far from the Eagles, but now they're leading by 10. They're going to want to try to keep Mahomes off the field as much as they can. They're probably going to be going to a more rushing attack. Jalen Hurts, his over-under rushing yard total coming into this game was around 48 to 50.5, depending on the book. Now he has close to 70 yards rushing in the first half. Just want to double check 63 yards, and his over-under is at 99.5. It seems like they've been calling a lot of design runs for him in this spot, especially on third down. And he's been able to also just break runs on this defense so far. So I'm wondering if there's any way that your model is showing value for Jalen Hurts to live bet his rushing yards prop.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Let me make sure I'm just fully up to date on Jalen Hurts. 11 for 63 rushing yards. And what did you say his live line is there for
99.5.
99.5. I love it. So basically to break the century mark there for Jalen Hurts on rushing yards, I just typed in receiving yards. So I need to make sure I type in rushing yards. 63 rushing yards. Now our pregame projection for Jalen Hurts was 47.
Just a shade under.
So right. So our pregame projection was 47. So you'd think, even though the Eagles are going to run more now, that should mean we're showing more than half of 47, which would be 23.5. And we're showing more than half of 47. We're showing 25 yards the rest of the game, which would put them at 88, which is a long way to 99.5. And one of the things I think the Eagles probably won't do is risk a Jalen Hurts injury, especially if they have a significant lead, or a fumble, especially if they have a significant lead. So I actually like taking the under here. The Eagles also do not start with the ball. So we're showing really big value on his under here. We're showing 82% under. Now it could be a problem where it's like, okay, what about scrambles? What about not scrambles? How is that all factored in? But often what we'll notice is if a team is trailing, the quarterback will scramble more because they're going to be throwing more and they'll be in situations where they can scramble. So we're really banking on Jalen Hurts designed runs. And I don't necessarily think they go with Jalen Hurts designed runs, especially on the first possession right now, especially if the Chiefs don't score, right? They just don't need to risk Jalen Hurts injury, especially with Mahomes injured as well. I'm taking the under here. I'm taking under 99.5 rushing yards on Jalen Hurts. I don't know if you're tailing me, but this feels like another spot we just have to take another under.
Oh, no. I just found out somebody just messaged me. Bitch Better Have My Money was the first song that was 12-1 to hit for the Rihanna Super Bowl halftime show. If you had that. Actually, sorry, no, that was the last song. Bitch Better Have My Money was 8-1 for the first song. So now people are waiting to see kind of if there's a wardrobe malfunction, what the last song is going to be, you know, if there's going to be a Jay-Z appearance. It's going to be really fun here for this halftime show. But somebody had asked a question in the chat, Nick, about our boy Kenneth Gainwell, specifically for his rushing and receiving yards prop. Now, combined between the rushing attempts and pass attempts that he has gotten, he's got 33 yards. Books seem to be hanging a line that he's going to get a lot more, or similar to at least second half work, because they've got a line at 64.5 for that. And also, they seem to think that the touchdown is likely coming too, because they didn't budge his odds at all. They're sitting right now at plus 400 for a second half touchdown. And he was, hovering around the plus 350. He was upwards of almost plus 400 pre-game. So I guess this is a two-parter, but let's look maybe at the rushing receiving yards, or maybe even just receiving yards. One of the angles of where we could get maybe a little bit more impact and action on Gainwell.
Yeah, so this sucks because I loved Gainwell coming in. Absolutely loved him. And I still like him if things were to rubber band a little bit closer. Sure. But it's also really hard with the Miles Sanders injury. That I was watching live odds when it was reported Miles Sanders went to the locker room. Gainwell's odds dropped significantly. He went from, like you said, around plus 400 pregame down to about plus 210 after the Sanders injury. So now he's back up to plus 400, which is where he was pre-game.
Yep.
So it's hard for me to make that adjustment of where he should be. I think it's just a situation to avoid. If we think Sanders is fully healthy and will play the normal amount that he plays, this is a big if, then we're not showing value on Gainwell's anytime touchdown at all, or second half touchdown. We'd be at plus 840 as fair value. He's around plus 400, plus 425 right now at bet365. As far as rushing and receiving yards, we have him projected for, so he has 33 total right now.
Yeah.
We have him projected for a median of another 17 and a quarter. So 33 plus 17 is 50. Like, let's say like 50 and a half.
He's going to fall short about 13 yards based on those projections.
So again, we're kind of on the under there, but that's again, assuming Miles Sanders plays his full workload. If Miles Sanders does not, then all of a sudden the touchdown odds, the rushing plus receiving yards, those catch up to where they would be. So I just want to avoid that situation on Kenneth Gainwell, unfortunately.
Well, what if we just took it down to a vacuum and just looked at specifically receiving yards? Because he's already got 15 in the first half. One pass that he caught was actually called back from an offensive pass interference. So he had 15 receiving yards, and the over-under, he only needs another 5-yard reception to get to another over here. I'm wondering if there's anything from a model standpoint where maybe that might be the angle you want to look at Gainwell.
Say that again one more time. Like what?
So he's got 15 angle? Receiving yards. The over-under is 19 and a half. Wondering if maybe there's enough. That's right. Yeah. Just so, he could probably get that in one catch. I think just bettors and the books are kind of looking at this from an algorithm standpoint of the Eagles having this lead, probably going to be running it a little bit more, especially because we talked about this on the touchdown show where majority of his touchdowns have been scored rushing the ball instead of actually catching it. But he's been used a lot so far in this game. So I'm wondering if maybe that would be the angle we could take to get another angle piece of action.
Yeah, we're showing under on 19 and a half receiving yards as well at 57.5%. But again, if he gets more work, then that becomes basically even money. So I just want to avoid Kenneth Gainwell, unfortunately.
No, I hear you. I think the reason why I was thinking of Gainwell is because they have his over under of rushing yards at 40 and a half, and he only has 18 rushing yards. So it's almost like under the assumption that, he's going to get work, but he's actually just going to be running the ball. And, I'd imagine he'll be out there on third down conversions sometimes. So that was the angle of kind of what I was playing with that. But if there's no value on it, then we're not going to force it here in this spot.
Yeah, well, you bring up a really good point, because 40 and a half rushing yards, if Miles Sanders gets a full workload, we're showing 80% under for Kenneth Gainwell. Mm-hmm. And right now, Miles Sanders, 19 and a half yards is his live line at bet365 for rushing yards. He has -2 right now, by the way. So we'd be showing 67% over. So what books are saying is they do think Kenneth Gainwell is going to get more work. So if we think he's going to get more work, the spot we're showing better value on is still under on the rushing yards than the receiving yards. So right now we're showing 57.5% under on his receiving yards and 80% under on his rushing yards if Miles Sanders has a full workload. But again, it sounds like books aren't thinking that way. So I actually think Kenneth Gainwell under on his rushing yards is very interesting, right? He only has 3 yards per carry so far.
I know,
that's what I was 6 carries for 18 yards.
I knew there was an angle here.
And so our pregame projection for Kenneth Gainwell, just in terms of his yards per carry, was 4.5, just under 4.5 yards per carry. So if he gets 4.5 yards per carry, he needs 22 more yards to stay under. So if at most 22 more yards. So let's say he has 22 divided by 4.45. He would need 5 more carries to as an average to stay probably under. If he gets a 6th carry, we'd probably favor him to go over. So the question is, does he get 6 more carries? And I think given he had 6 in the first half and they're more likely to run now, I still want to avoid this. So it's a really good question. It's a great, mind game, but I think we probably need to move on to a different spot here, just because I think the Kenneth Gainwell angle, while I like it, and I think it's a great discussion, it isn't resulting in any betting spots for me.
No, that's fair. So from a touchdown standpoint, again, we talked about if Jerick McKinnon would offer any value. And maybe what I'm wondering is there an angle where we could play where we could take Jerick McKinnon maybe as a second half anytime touchdown scorer at plus 375 or plus 400, I believe he is for anytime. Again, just with this game script of the Chiefs trailing by 10 now at this game, you got to think that they're going to have to pass a lot in the second half, even though we like the under on the passing yards. Do we think that Jerick McKinnon would offer any type of value for somebody who's looking for a way to get a Chiefs touchdown score in the second half?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I am just looking at that right now. Just give me 1 second. We're showing about plus 575 as fair value on Jerick McKinnon's anytime touchdown odds. So don't think we're quite there as far as value, but we are kind of in that spot where I did like his last touchdown odds. So I think 14-1 last touchdown. I don't know if I'm just trying to peruse real quick. There is no live last touchdown score. I think that would be a fun one to take Jerick McKinnon. Also, I'm looking at just a couple different things here. We are showing no value on Jalen Hurts interception prop. I was looking to see if we'd have any value on his interception prop, either on the over or the under, because sometimes we get these counterintuitive situations, but with the Eagles favored and leading, we're not getting a counterintuitive spot here. As far as I'm just going to go through some rushing and receiving yard props here. So let me come over to Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco, his live line is 45.5 rushing yards.
Yep, 17 yards is what he'd need.
Yeah, so right now Isaiah Pacheco is at 28 rushing yards, and his live line is 45.5. We're showing overvalue there. Plus, the Chiefs are starting with the ball. Plus, Patrick Mahomes is arguably hurt. Is there a chance that because Mahomes is hurt, he came off limping there, that the Chiefs skew a little more run heavy than we even think? Because we're already showing overvalue on Pacheco. And this is a very common spot I take, is a team that's trailing books over adjust on their rushing yardage prop and bring it down too far. But these teams still have 2 quarters to play with. Kansas City starts with the ball. Mahomes injured. We're showing 63% over on Pacheco at 45.5. What do you think?
Well, I think he's already had a carry for 24 yards in this game. He could go over this in just almost 1 carry if he just breaks one. He's been a very hard runner his entire career. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry in this game. So if he gets even 5 more carries in the second half, you have to think that he's going to get at least close to this, if not be able to top it just in 1 run.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco over 45.5 rushing yards.
I'm with you.
It's a little scary because there's the McKinnon factor, but we also have to remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire inactive. So there's just that little bit of a factor there. It's going to be the Pacheco and McKinnon show. And if the Chiefs are somehow able to claw this back, then there's definitely going to be value on Pacheco's over. We're already showing value anyway, even given the current situation. So to recap, we're obviously not near the end of halftime right now. I mean, we got Rihanna still on stage here, but we have me and you as well. So right now we have 3 bets. We have Patrick Mahomes under 268.5 passing yards. That's what we took live. That's down to 260.5. So
that's
market has moved in our direction there. We have Jalen Hurts under 99.5 rushing yards. That's moved down to 98.5. And now we're taking Isaiah Pacheco under 45.5, over 45.5 rushing yards. We're showing 63% value on that. So we're up to 3 bets right now on Bet What Happens Live. I was hoping we get at least 3. That was my goal, right?
Well, there's one other market, Nick, I wanted to ask you about, because you're obviously a huge guru on being able to project kicker points. And both Harrison Butker and Jake Elliott, they have kicker point props up right now. Harrison Butker, we obviously saw that big doink in the first half for that field goal attempt. He has 2 combined points based on the extra points. His over-under sitting at 5.5, whereas Jake Elliott has 6 points, field goal. So right now sitting at 9.5. Wondering if maybe there's a kicker angle we could look at, especially if maybe in the second half where maybe maybe the Chiefs just decide we're going for it, and they just take Butker out of the equation.
I ain't touching kicker props because here's the issue. Chiefs are down 10, which is very much a field goal spot.
It is
for Butker. So we're basically saying, and the Chiefs start with the ball. If the Chiefs didn't start with the ball and the Eagles had an opportunity to score first and make it either 13 points or 17 points, preferably 13 points, then I would love much more to take that Harrison Butker under. But because the Chiefs start with the ball and they could settle for a field goal, no problem, and make it a one possession game again, it makes it very dicey on that 5.5. And then same with Jake Elliott. It's just a spot I'm going to avoid the kicker props.
So another prop too, then I imagine. So a lot of the time when people will bet on touchdown scores, you'll see Travis Kelce, he'll get his first touchdown and you think, well, he got it so early, he's bound to get another one. And we're already at halftime and it's sitting at plus 162. Kind of wondering, is there any consideration for Kelce to get some extra work in the second half and get, if not more receptions and yards, but at least more looks in the end zone where plus 162 could be appealing to a bettor?
Plus 162 for second half touchdown odds. We have plus 230, which of course he already scored a touchdown. So that's already
plus 200 for a second half anytime touchdown score.
And we're at plus 230 for Travis Kelce. I do think what would be interesting is to look at his receiving yards prop. So just trying to scroll around and find props and stall a little time.
That was 107.5. Woof.
So 107.5, but he already has 60 or so, 60 yards receiving.
It feels like 100 already. I'll just
it does feel like that
from an eye test.
We're showing just a touch of value on the under, not enough to be able to comfortably bet it, especially at the juice that minus 110, minus 115 juice, plus the fact that the Chiefs start with the ball. So nothing there, and the concert is over for Rihanna. So the last song was Diamonds. If you anybody had the bet on that one,
that was 10-1, Nick. 10-1 to have Diamonds as the last song for halftime.
As the last song, nice. Yeah. So we have made 3 anytime touchdown bets, or not anytime touchdown bets, halftime show bets. Yeah. So stuck on the touchdown theme when I'm talking with you.
That's such a good first half.
Exactly. Other than that Gainwell down in the 1-inch line.
Trust in the process. You got it at a good odds the price. It hasn't really moved at halftime. That's got to tell you something. You got to feel good about that second half.
Yeah, exactly. So before halftime ends, right? We still got a little bit of time. We've got time. It's the Super Bowl. It's halftime. Yep. There's things going on. There's commercials. There's all sorts of stuff. Where are you going next, Gilles? We've talked about a bunch of stuff, but we got to find one more. We've got 3 bets. I would love to get to 5, but I'll settle for 3.
Well, the other thing that I was going to look at, again, we could look at this from a correlation standpoint, is if we're taking on the under on receiving yards passing yards for Mahomes, his over-under for completions is at 23.5. That would entail a hell of a second half of successful passing game. I'm kind of wondering, especially with the injury concern, if it's sitting right now around minus 130, so not the best value, but I'm wondering if maybe there is still some value on that for anybody who wants to double down on the Mahomes injury.
His live completions is 23.5. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we are showing 21.63 as his live completion. So let me just real quick do the math here.
Yeah, the odds
so
are
23.5.
Yeah.
21.63. So we're showing as a percentage only a 33% chance of clearing that. So a 67% chance of staying under that number for Patrick Mahomes.
I'm just saying if we're already under the passing yards, you got to have completions to get passing yards. So, and they've been throwing it downfield quite a bit. So I'm kind of wondering if those could correlate, even though it's obviously at minus.
They do correlate. And we're actually showing even more value on the completions than on the yards. So I love that. So, I think we need to bet it just as a protection in case he has a long, completion or anything like that. I think that's a good bet to make as a protection bet. So under 23.5 completions for Patrick Mahomes. Bet number 4 on Bet What Happens Live. Is there time to find one more, Gilles? Where are we going next?
Oh man. Well, again, my first thing I saw the plus money is Kadarius Toney going to get any work in the second half at all from a reception standpoint, because it was over under 1.5. 1.5 sitting at plus 130 right now for him to get some work. Hasn't really been showing much in the second half. I think that's the one thing we may have to pivot away from Chiefs passing props after we just locked in 2 for Mahomes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I'm trying to find more, but at the same time, I immediately default to touchdowns, and I was just thinking to myself, you know what?
I've got a fun one. If we want to go with touchdown scorers, here's a guy we were showing value on pregame. Zach Pascal was 14, 15 to 1 pregame. I was showing value there.
He's 16 to 1 now.
He's 20 to 1 for a second half touchdown at Bet365. We're not quite there, but one thing I've noticed is Pascal gets a lot of late game work in blowouts. If somehow this turns into a blowout, his anytime touchdown becomes interesting. So I'm not betting it, but if the Chiefs stall out here and or the Eagles score in the next possession, I might fire. So make sure you're following me in the Action Network app. I might fire on a Zach Pascal anytime touchdown live. We'll see. Or you know, right. I guess I'll have to tweet it out because we can't track that in the Action app, but I wanted to get the Action app plug in there.
Well, we definitely want to get Gainwell. We want to get Gainwell to be able to get our best bets of the game off the board. We want to see if maybe Goddard can get involved as well. And also, don't sleep on the Jerick McKinnon last touchdown bet that Nick Giffen has. If you can look at that and be able to get that as maybe the next Chiefs touchdown score, something like that midway through the fourth quarter, that you might be able to get peak value on that for a touchdown score prop.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing, Jerick McKinnon, he has how many receiving yards? He has 12 receiving yards, and 26.5 is his live line. That's 50-50. I thought maybe we were going to show some value on the under there, but we're not. Just going to wrap up here in just a moment, but I'm just real quick plugging in anything else I could potentially see. Juju Smith-Schuster. Justin Watson's up to 14.5, like you said. We're showing some undervalue there, which correlates with Mahomes, having an injury. And then on the Eagles side of things, AJ Brown, 97.5. Devontae Smith at off the board, surprisingly, for receiving yards. Dallas Goedert, 38.5. So it looks like we're not showing any value on any of the Eagles here. But we do have that value on Justin Watson's under at 14.5. I don't know what you think of that as a last.
I mean, I'm invested pregame. I was able to get it at 17.5, and then it immediately went down to 15.5, and it's been kind of hovering there ever since. And just like we talked about at the start of the show, the volatility of how he could just get one catch for 15 yards and just piss on our dreams just really just feels discouraging. I just don't want to have a heartbreak like that in the second half on a bet like that for one catch.
I agree. I understand that. So I think that's going to do it. We're coming out of halftime here. So we're going to wrap up Bet What Happens Live. Just going to recap our bets here. Our first bet was Patrick Mahomes under 268.5 passing yards. To correlate with that, which was our fourth bet, we're going to take under 23.5 completions for Patrick Mahomes. And then our second bet overall was Jalen Hurts under 99.5 rushing yards. And then our third bet, Isaiah Pacheco over 45.5 rushing yards. So those are our 4 bets that we made on Bet What Happens Live. For Gilles Gallant, I'm Nick Giffen. Thank you for joining us all year on Bet What Happens Live. We've done so many shows, and good luck to everybody. It's the Super Bowl. Enjoy the games, and let's go 4 for 4. We'll see you next year on Bet What Happens Live. To our producers, to everybody, thank you for putting on this show. And, of course, to Bet365 for sponsoring the show all through the playoffs. Thank you very much. Good luck, and enjoy the game.